All right, should be good to go.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating in the Zoom meeting today, whether you're on the phone or in the actual meeting with Zoom. So this is kind of the first of 3 of these that we have this week. Today we're going to be kind of focusing on the cropland pasture land use. Tomorrow at the same time we'll be talking about rangeland land use, and then on Thursday focusing more on the forested ground in the county. If you're in the Zoom room and unable to hear us, the call-in number is located on that first slide, so you might write that down, and it might be another way that you can get in if you're having any difficulties. So this is kind of a new world that we're in this year with COVID and not having the local work group meeting like we normally do down at the ODF office. But we're kind of trying to make it the best that we can while we're here today. And it's a little bit more difficult to kind of do a check-in with everybody, but Kylie Schedule is a soil con over in Ontario, and she's helping me facilitate the meeting today. So she's going to kind of do some roll call. So if you can send her a private chat with your name, kind of your organization or affiliate, your email and phone number, she's going to kind of record all the participants for the meeting today. And then we'll kind of use that each year for local work group meeting outreach, and just kind of gives us an idea of who's in the room and who's participating in our meetings. So you can kind of do that anytime you have, and then it looks like we have a couple of folks that are on the phone only. So if you want to unmute, and maybe if you can kind of just tell us who you are and who you're representing, then we would be able to record you as well. Well, and I'm wondering if that's Hannah, and maybe I'm not sure who that would be, but
Not sure either. I can see her video is separate from her phone, so it might be her.
okay. All right. Well, we'll kind of move on then. But here's kind of the agenda for the meeting today. Just want to go over real briefly the NRCS staff, because we've had some changes in the last year. I'm going to have a little bit of information for the new FSA County Executive Director. Want to kind of cover the priority resource concerns that have been identified in the past meetings through these for the county. And then really kind of focus a lot of time on the funding opportunities that we have this year, current conservation implementation strategies, and then talk a little bit more about some future work. And really the purpose of today's meeting is to get some input and comments from folks out in the county and the partners as well. So anybody that's willing to give us some input and information, we appreciate the time that you're taking. So this is something that we kind of talk about, the local work group meeting. There's always kind of some purposes that we have for these meetings. And some of this information, the first 3 or 4 bullet points I kind of already covered in the YouTube recording that I did about a month ago. If you look in the chat, there's a link to that location if you want to kind of go and focus on that. But really we kind of talk about the work that we've done in the last year. Talk about plans and where we're hoping to move into the future, connect with partners and landowners, and kind of focus on the opportunities that we have in the county, and then talk a little bit about the programs that we have available that producers can apply for. And really the meeting today is really to check in, see how we're doing, what can we do better. Are there emerging technologies out there that we haven't thought about that we could incorporate into some funding opportunities, and gather input from producers and partners. So I did send out an email with the YouTube information, but we also can access that from the Oregon NRCS website. We have a local work group meeting page, and if you scroll down to Grant County, that's where the recording will be, and then the recording for these meetings as well. So my name is Aaron Roth, and I'm the District Conservationist here in Grant County. Hannah Mears has been the soil con here for a couple of years now, and is getting much more up to speed on all the different variety of programs that we have. Stephanie Art is the new soil con that started here in January, and unfortunately she's out sick today. And then Teresa Perkins has been our CREP tech for the last couple of years, but she has joined NRCS as a soil conservationist technician. And we're excited about those additions. And then we'll talk a little bit more on Thursday. We do have a couple of ODF staff that help out with a lot of the forestry work that we do. We are planning on hiring a new CREP technician, which is funded through OWEB and the Grant Soil and Water Conservation District. And we are looking at adding a third soil conservationist to NRCS, hopefully sometime this spring or summer. And that'll give us a lot more ability to meet with producers and provide them with some technical assistance, as well as talk about our programs. So FSA update, I don't see Emma on the list of participants today, but basically starting January 1st, Harney and Grant County are now considered one office, whereas in the last few years, we've kind of been sharing the FSA duties with the Baker City office. So this realigns basically more with how things were done historically with the two counties. You can see she's got some of her programs listed on here. The LFP program, some deadlines for the acreage report, the Conservation Reserve Program, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program, and they're also working on hiring a program technician, and they were actually hosting some interviews here in the office today. So they're hopefully we'll get somebody in that would be good for the position, and that person will be training in Harney County for 4 to 6 months, it sounds like, to kind of get up to speed on their program. Her contact information is down below, and she's been coming over on Tuesdays. So I would, if you have any questions, I would suggest getting a hold of her and setting up an appointment to meet with her. So the county priority resource concerns that have kind of been developed the last 6 or 8 or 10 years kind of are listed on the screen here currently, with the first one being the invasive species, which could include juniper annual grasses and other herbaceous weeds. Number 2 is kind of that forest health, fire reduction resource concern. This could include aspen restoration. The third one is grazing management, including stock water developments and cross fencing. And number 4 is water quality and quantity, which it could include irrigation efficiency improvements and stock water. And the 5th one is kind of the easement conversation. You know, how do we protect some of these working lands to reduce the threat of subdivision, or how do we keep the working lands working? So that's kind of just a quick overview of the resource concerns that have been identified in the county over the years. And I think today we're probably really going to be kind of focusing on number 4, looking at the water quality and quantity component. So this is just a quick map of the funding priorities that we have for 2021. As you can see, there are quite a few project areas currently going on. The Environmental Quality Incentives Program is kind of focused in the northern part of the county. These are basically the CISs that we developed over the last few years. And this is kind of the first year that we'll be working up in the Ritter area, doing a lot of juniper work, pre-commercial thinning, aspen restoration, kind of along those lines. RCPP is the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, and that's basically where a partner comes in and submits a proposal for funding for NRCS funding, and then they're providing match funds to basically leverage that money to get more work on the ground. And we have 2 of those that are currently taking applications this year. The first one is the Upper John Day River Flow and Protection Project, which was funded through the Confederated Tribes of the Warm Springs. And Nicole Alexson will be on here in a minute, and she'll kind of give you a little bit of an overview of that. And then the other project, which just got funded within the last year, is the South Fork John Day Watershed Restoration grant. And that was submitted by Amy Steiner and the Watershed Council out there. And we'll talk more about that project area tomorrow during the range session. And with that, Nicole, if you're on, I will turn my video off. And if you want to kind of talk about that a little bit, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Aaron. I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview and kind of what our RCPP is focused on. And so the map that you're looking at right now is our 2 priority areas. So the Reynolds Creek and the Grub Creek priority area are going to be the first priority, and then the rest in yellow are our second priority. They go all the way to Dayville and up into Bridge Creek and down to the headwaters. Aaron, if you want to switch pages. So we have 2 sections of this RCPP. We have EQIP, which is Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So what we're doing with that, we got the EQIP dollars. We have $1.1 million for that program. And what it's focused on is irrigation efficiency. And so anybody within that boundary can apply for this funding. And what that's going to focus on is kind of piping open ditches, and then also, flood the sprinkle, stock water systems, things like that, that will help us with that water savings in the Grant County. And then we also have a ASAP AL program. We've partnered with Blue Mountain Land Trust on this. And so I put her contact information on this sheet. But like Aaron said earlier, this is mostly focused on keeping working lands working and kind of preventing that subdivision of those lands. And so there are benefits to that for landowners besides just keeping their land in one whole piece. There are tax write-offs, benefits, and sometimes cash payments depending on what you decide. Usually we look for properties that are upwards of 160 acres, but it can vary depending on what your property's ecological value is, determined by NRCS. So I just kind of want to give you guys an overview. If you or anyone you know has an open ditch they want piped or anything of that nature, or a ASAP AL program that they're working at, they wanted to invest in, either get a hold of me or Amanda Martino for the easement, or just me or Aaron for the NRCS EQIP funding. Aaron, I think that's a quick overview.
Nicole, this is Jack Southworth. What's ASAP AL an acronym for?
Oh, okay. So, sorry, that was for agricultural land easements as the AL program. Aaron, I don't know the acronym ASAP off the top of my head.
You're putting me on the spot here. I think it's Agricultural Conservation Program, and then it's
I think you're right.
Agricultural land easements. So they keep changing the names of the easement program we have within the Farm Bill, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Nope.
Okay, thanks, Nicole.
Yeah, no problem. And we do have $2.7 million for ASAP AL, so quite a bit of funding, and we do work with other agencies to supplement that funding, such as OWEB. So we'd have to work together with those agencies and be comfortable with that, but it's a really great program.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I guess, you know, in the last 10 years since I've been here, we haven't done a whole lot of irrigation improvement projects within the county. So I thought I would just kind of list some of the criteria that we have within RCS when we start looking at these. Because anytime there is some federal funding involved, there's probably some stipulations that you kind of need to be aware of. So I've kind of highlighted a few of these. More of the important ones. So basically you have to show beneficial use on the ground by irrigating it 2 out of the last 5 years. You know, our designs for these kind of projects are going to be based on the water right. And, you know, a lot of cases there's ditches or water that's getting diverted that in a lot of cases they may be taking more than their actual water right. So that's kind of an important thing to understand. Working in areas where we have salmon and steelhead and the endangered and threatened species, basically we need a diversion that has good fish passage and has a fish screen so that we're not impacting those species by irrigating. And as Nicole kind of mentioned, you must be willing to work with some additional partners. And then if your ditch goes through multiple landowners, there's got to be some agreement between everybody so that that those projects would be maintained either in perpetuity or for the life of the practices. And then also NRCS, basically we're kind of paying for the on-farm portion of that. So the pipe and the risers or the wheel lines and those kind of things. Amy and Nicole or OWEB maybe the funding source for getting some of the diversions or for more of the in-stream work done. So I just kind of wanted to highlight a few of those things just to make sure everybody's kind of aware when we're talking about irrigation. Here's a few things that we got to consider. And then this slide is basically just kind of a summary of the funding opportunities in the county. And we kind of already looked at where those maps are located. But that's kind of the list of programs. We also have some statewide initiatives, which include the seasonal high tunnel if you're looking at growing some vegetables under a high tunnel. Energy audits would be another option. And then we also have the organic transition to organic funding available. And if anyone is interested in any of those programs that we've kind of talked about today, the application deadline for 2021 is April 16th. Another one of our pretty common programs that a lot of people are familiar with, the Conservation Stewardship Program, has gone through quite a bit of changes in the 2018 Farm Bill, including Congress basically kind of reduced the funding across the nation by about half. It went from a little over $9.5 billion down to about $5 billion. So it's become a much more competitive process with that. But we are taking applications for the classic sign up, and that those are due by April 26th, 2021, and then we'll start working through those this spring and summer. So if there's any interest in that program, feel free to contact us and we can get you the information that you need. So that's just kind of a highlight of some of the things that we have available for program wise. And this kind of part of the Zoom meeting is more to gather input from the landowners, from the partners, with ideas. Are we working in the right area? You know, the irrigation improvements more on the crop ground where we're doing some haying. Are things that we need to be looking at on the pasture grounds that would make an improvement in the county? So really this is just kind of where I'm going to open it up to everybody else. And if you have ideas, comments, suggestions, this is basically your opportunity.
Aaron, could you just call on us individually, and then we won't worry about jumping on each other?
Sure. Jack, you want to start us off?
Sure. Could you go back another slide or two to show us your priority areas? Not geographically, but you had that list of 5 that included. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And of course, with the cropland, pasture land, there you are. I think the grazing management, and then I would sure urge you to constantly look at this through the lens of your 5 soil health principles. I know that helps us a lot on this ranch, figure out how to approach having healthier rangeland. But the covered soil, the diversity of plants, a live root year-round, incorporating livestock, and a minimum of tillage are all things that we can think about when we're doing our management.
Okay.
That'd be my input. I like your priorities, and but urge you to increase the use of the soil health principles, which I think is a really good concept.
Okay. And do you have ideas on how to improve grazing management on those systems, or?
I wish more of us were required to do a grazing management plan, and I hesitate to include certain parameters, but providing adequate recovery during the growing season is so critical in our arid environment that we could encourage grazing plans that kept grazing periods to a week or less during the growing season. I think we'd do a huge amount for the health of our perennial grasses, and then combine that with leaving at least a minimum of a 6-inch residual. Then you've got something that really brings about the covered rangeland and pasture land that we seek, with a diversity of species, with live roots in the soil year-round.
Okay. And
But I think the CSP program, grazing management, is a part of it. So I think it's an example of where you're utilizing your soil health principles.
Okay. Do you see like pasture reseedings or interseedings, pasture improvements as being beneficial to maybe increase the diversity or, nitrogen fixing plants in some of those systems?
Yeah, but once again, I think that's a really good example, Aaron. A good question that goes through my mind is, how often should we till that soil if we want to minimize tillage? And on this ranch, we do it somewhere between once every 30 to 50 years. So I think that's a minimum of tillage. But are there other ways to do it? And right now, the other ways to do it utilize herbicide. Maybe some people don't want to use herbicide. Maybe they prefer the occasional tillage. But it is a great opportunity to introduce that diversity of plants that is one of the principles of soil health. So that's a good example of, there aren't any easy answers, but it gives you a way to evaluate what you're doing.
Okay. Anything else, Jack?
No. And I won't be able to be on the rangeland one, but I think my comments on the rangeland would be really similar. And I'm not sure about Thursday's session, but I just thank you for providing this opportunity. No
problem. And we haven't done a lot of work up in Bear Valley, Seneca area. It's not really talking about range stuff today, but we can talk about it. Do you see opportunities up there, or things that you see across the other landowners up there that would be beneficial for maybe a future CIS? Because it's definitely a part of the county we haven't done a lot of work in recently. And
so at the risk of sounding like a broken record, grazing management planning would be something we could all benefit from, and maybe in a collaborative setting to share our challenges and our successes. might be a beneficial thing.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Jack. I'm just kind of looking at the participants that we have here. Amy Steiner or Hannah, anything from the South Fork John Day Watershed Council with regards to pastures, croplands? So it looks like Amy's unmuted, but I'm not hearing anything. Well, Amy, if you're trying to talk, maybe send a message in the chat and maybe we'll move on to Jim and kind of go from there and maybe can check in with you here in a minute. Jim, anything on your end?
Jim's muted.
Yeah, you're also muted, Jim. Sorry.
There we go. I think your focus on range health and grazing management is a very good one. In the Ritter area, we're having to contend, as you know, with invasive grasses, and so any assistance regarding reseeding would be very helpful. It's a very difficult dynamic that we've got in terms of having to spray for Medusa head in particular, and then finding the opportunity to replace grasses in those sprayed areas. With Rejuvra, Esplanade, some of the other products makes it a little bit easier now to contend with the invasive grasses, but it's still an issue that's very important to landowners. And then picking up on Jack's point, I think anything that NRCS could do more in terms of carbon sequestration in the soils would be very helpful regarding the encouragement of cover crops and no-till ag.
Okay. And do you see kind of that pasture renovation? You don't have a lot of pastures in Ritter, but is that something that you think the working group or landowners out there would be interested in?
I would hope so, but I can't. Yeah, I can't conjecture really.
Okay.
They should be.
Okay. And there's just not a lot of irrigated ground out there, but are there other water quality, water quantity things that we can look at that would help the streams or help the landowners out in that area that you can think of?
It's certainly some of the riparian projects, for example, that we've had with NRCS, I think have been very helpful. Certainly extensive juniper removal, which is part of the NRCS EQUIP project, is going to be very helpful in terms of increasing water quantity.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Nicole, do you wanna, any thoughts? I mean, you guys are kind of have your area prioritized already. So we kind of know where we're hoping to work there, but anything from you guys?
I don't think I have anything additional. I think those resource concerns are pretty spot on for what we need, and I really hope that people come and take advantage of our RCPP in our area. I know the 2 landowners that are on aren't within the boundary, which is a bummer, but if you know anybody, let them know.
All right, thanks, Nicole. And let's see. Amy, you want to give it a try again? See if we can get you off of mute and see if we can hear you this time. Oh man, we're struggling today.
It looks like she typed a reply in the chat too.
Oh, okay. Let's see, where'd the chat box? You want to read that off, Kylie?
Yep. It says, hey, I'll type it. Sorry. I think your priority areas are spot on. I was just thinking with the increased drought years, looking at water storage options, maybe warranted reservoirs or groundwater storage.
Okay. And I know those have been talked about in a lot of different meetings, and certainly something we can look at, but I think there's some challenges in a lot of places, permitting and some of those things, but we can certainly add that to the list of things to think about. And I guess, Amy, if you have other ideas or suggestions on where those would go or how we might get there, we can certainly talk about that at some point. And let's see. I'm guessing Hannah, are you the one that called in on the phone, or the person on the phone have anything to comment or any input?
That was your Hannah, combining with the other one. She has it just separated.
Oh, okay. So then it sounds like we've got input pretty much from everybody that's.
So the Long Creek number is one of your staff then?
Yep, I'm gonna guess. Yep, must be so. Okay. Well, that's the fun of Zoom meetings. I wasn't sure how many people would have on today or throughout any of these meetings, but just appreciate everybody taking the time to call in and listen in. I will just kind of plug our meetings for tomorrow and Thursday again, same time, both days, focusing on range and forest for the next couple days. And then if you have questions or other further input, feel free to give me a call or send me an email. We do have a couple of quick poll questions probably before we head out, if folks are willing to kind of answer those. Just trying to see how this new technology is working, if we're kind of capturing what we need to capture, or if we're missing the boat on some things. So Kylie, if you can maybe launch those poll questions.
Absolutely.
Well, before you start on the poll, since it's a small group,
Yep.
I'd be curious to know what Aaron, you and Hannah and Teresa think about what's important in the county. You have more of a wide spread perspective than we do. This is an opportunity for some give and take. So Aaron, first, what do you see as the priority?
Well, turning it around on me, Jack, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You bet.
Yeah, so I see, the water quality and quantity resource concerns is not going away. And I think as we continue to have changes in the climate and warming of the things, the drought is going to be, an increase of concern. So, the stock water, I think, is going to be continued important down on the irrigated meadows and those kind of things. Might look at some more intensive grazing management, short duration, electric fencing as ways of giving those plants more time to rest. We have a lot of meadow foxtail down there, and that's a pretty decent species if you're winter feeding and grazing on those pastures. But is there something else that we could interseed with those or incorporate in those to make them more productive? Or some of the things that we've kind of kicked around a little bit, saving the water, irrigation improvements I think are good in the right setting and the right slope. But it's not like we're gonna put pivots up and down the valley because our, the value of our crops are not quite the same as if you're growing alfalfa or something more valuable. So I think there's kind of got to be a trade-off there. Yeah, the soil health side of things I think can be applied to the pastures and the range side of it for sure. So that's why I asked about the pasture renovation. Jack, we've got a couple of CSP guys that are, instead of doing full rip it out and starting over, we're going to try to basically, after they graze all their cows in those pastures in the late spring, come back in and broadcast seed and then harrow those fields, trying to get some more legumes or clovers in there to try to increase some of that diversity. So we'll kind of see how that works, but talked to at least one landowner and seen on his fields where that's been pretty successful. So it might be something we could use elsewhere.
Thanks. Teresa, what are your thoughts? You've seen as much of the county as anyone.
Most of what I hear from all of the landowners is they need stock water and cross fencing, and that would go right along with our number 3 priority, which is the range management. So those are the things that I see as what people need the most.
Mm-hmm. And Hannah?
I've been messaging with Hannah, but it's been, we're kind of stuck on getting her landline off mute, so.
Okay. That I won't worry about. Thank you. I appreciate your perspective.
Happy to help.
Well, and I guess I will just add one other thing, Jack, and again, something we're definitely going to talk more about tomorrow is kind of the whole annual grass situation in the county. And I think Jim hit on that a little bit. There may be some new chemicals out there that show some promise of doing much longer control on some of those species. So we're hoping that, those locations where we do have good perennial bunch grasses, that if we can kind of control some of those annuals and allow those areas to reseed and kind of get more reinvigorated, that maybe that would be a very big thing for the county, just kind of knowing how much annual grass issues that we have in a lot of spots. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Matt Winnick's been working with Bayer, the chemical company, and trying to get on the forefront of doing a lot of work in the county on that. So that's kind of an emerging technology, I'm hoping.
Sure.
Aaron, if you're ready, I'll start the poll questions.
All right. Any other comments, questions, ideas, or things that you want to ask NRCS at this point?
The CSP is the competition on a county, state, or regional or national level?
So each state gets an allocated amount of funds, and then it's basically up to the state to kind of divide that up. In Oregon, we kind of have the 5 different zones throughout the state. So there's applications just for forestry. There's applications kind of on the west side of Oregon. There's kind of a zone that covers more of the wheat country, kind of up in Umatilla and Wasco and those counties. And then there's kind of a funding for kind of more of the irrigated grounds and Baker, Union, Wallowa County, and then kind of the rest is zone 2, which is the range ground in Eastern Oregon. So the state basically designates how much each of those zone gets.
I see. Thank you.
So you're competing with everybody else in that zone. And Jim, I see your video popped back on and you're unmuted. Did you have a question?
I don't. I just thank you for this program and the fourth and the next few. I think you guys are doing a great job. I've always enjoyed working with you.
Well, we appreciate that, Jim, for sure, and look forward to working with the land management team out there and hopefully doing some really good projects. All right, Kylie, I think we can launch the poll, as they say.
All right. Can somebody let me know if they can see those?
I think we can see
Yeah,
it
it
if you
popped
can
up on
just
mine.
make it bigger.
Great. Thank you. I think each person individually should be able to move it on their own screen. Aaron, I don't know if you can since you're sharing your screen.
I tried. Did that make it any bigger?
Nope. Well, at least not
No.
from my end.
I can move it on my screen and it's big enough to be able to read.
Great. Thanks, Teresa.
All right. Well, again, I just appreciate everybody taking the time out of their busy schedule and participating in this virtual local work group meeting. And if you have comments, suggestions, ideas throughout the year, we can take it in any time. Just get a hold of us because we always interested in good ideas and really want to go where the work is needed and there's willing and able landowners. So with that, if there are no other questions, I think we'll just hang out here for a minute, but you're free to go, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Aaron.